Ready, set, hike. Fall is in the air, and that only means one thing.
It's football season. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video from the Rogers Historical Museum.
Today, we're going to take a look at some of the history from the 150-year-old sport of football.
Let's get started. It's kickoff time.
On November 6, 1869, Rutgers University met up against the College of New Jersey, now called Princeton University, on a field to play a soccer match, but with a twist. They changed some of the rules, added some rules from rugby, and made up some new rules entirely. In the end, they had a whole new game and called it football. By the 1880s, official rules were created by Walter Camp, who helped solidify the change of rugby into football. Over the next few decades, more rules were created as the popularity of the new sport grew. By the turn of the century, a vast majority of athletic clubs across the country had a football team, with each team looking to get the best players for their team. Throughout the 1900s, a variety of football leagues were formed, most of which ended up folding, however. One of the biggest and most popular leagues was the American Professional Football Association, created in 1920. The APFA would later change its name to what we now know as the National Football League. Today, the NFL has the highest revenue of any sports league in the entire world, bringing in more than $16 billion annually from its 18 weeks of regular season games for its 32 teams.
In November 1892, William Heffelfinger was paid $500 by the Allegheny Athletic Association to play in a football game against their arch rival, the Pittsburgh Athletic Club. This would make Heffelfinger the first professionally paid football player. While $500 may not sound like a lot now, in 1892, $500 would be equivalent to almost $15,000 today. That still is not very much, considering the median pay for today's NFL players is almost $900,000. The following year, in 1893, the Pittsburgh Athletic Club, not to be outdone, signed the first paying football contract. With the dawn of paying players to play the game, professional football was created.
Little did Rutgers University and Princeton University know at the time, but their game of football in 1869 would change the sporting world forever. In the decades to come, football continued to gain popularity amongst colleges, in some cases even becoming more popular and prestigious than professional football. While popularity was rising, the dangers of the game still remained. So in 1906, the Intercollegiate Athletic Association of the United States, or the IAAUS, was established to better regulate safety and rules of football. In 1910, the IAAUS would change their name to the National Collegiate Athletic Association, or the NCAA. Through the 1900s, NCAA football continued to grow all the way up to what it is now. Today, over 669 schools have a football program and are divided into 3 levels of classification based on the institution's enrollment size.
Friday nights have long been associated with high school football, where alumni and fans alike gather to watch their hometown heroes battle it out against crosstown rivals. Right here in Northwest Arkansas is no different. For decades, local high schools have played for city bragging rights throughout the region. In the past few years, though, crosstown rivalries have faded as inner-city rivalries have taken over. The battles between Springdale and Fayetteville, or Rogers and Bentonville, have taken a back seat to Springdale and Harbor, Rogers and Heritage, and recently Bentonville and Bentonville West. Despite these new rivalries, the passion has stayed the same. Game day traditions passed on from one class to the next fill the air with electricity, culminating to kickoff time. Do you remember what your high school game day traditions were? Were the players wearing their jerseys in the hallway? Maybe a pep rally before school let out? Or were the windows of local stores all painted up for homecoming? Did players sport Letterman jackets like these ones here? Just like in professional and college levels, high school football awards its champions with trophies, like this regional one Rogers High School won in 1962. Recently, state champions have even been awarded with championship rings, like the one you see here. Arkansas awarded its first state championship in 1907, and at least one champion has been crowned every year since then. State championships are awarded to each level of classification, and currently there are 7 classifications that categorize all the schools in the state based on their size, starting with 7A being the largest 16 schools all the way down to 1A schools. Northwest Arkansas is home to schools in several of these classifications and have won almost 30 state championships amongst them.
Football games wouldn't be complete without the atmosphere, and academic levels of football provide just that with spirit squads, marching bands, and fans in the stands. Football games have been filled with the sounds of marching bands for about as long as the game's been around, with the first football game performance for a marching band being in 1887. Marching bands have been around for a few decades prior to football being played, with the Notre Dame Band of the Fighting Irish forming in 1845. It wasn't until 1907, though, that marching bands performed at halftime when the University of Illinois Band took to the field. That same year, the Purdue All-American Marching Band broke the mold of marching in more of a military formation when they changed things up and performed while marching in the shape of the letter P. Now, it's very common to see marching bands create various shapes and words while performing both classic and modern music. The basic roots of cheerleading can be traced all the way back to the original football game played in 1869, when students started several encouraging chants for their team. A few years later, in 1877, the first official cheer was created by Princeton, and in 1897, the term cheerleader was first officially used. Unlike today, the early days of cheerleading did not allow women to participate, and it wasn't until 1923 that the University of Minnesota first allowed women to participate. But it wasn't until World War II that women started participating in cheerleading more. Now, you can watch both men and women cheer collectively at a wide variety of sports and in cheer competitions around the world.
A history of football would not be complete without mentioning how football is played outside of the United States. The word football itself may mean a different sport in other parts of the world, so to differentiate the football played in this country, it is often referred to as American football or gridiron football. American football leagues can be found in many countries throughout the world. Some of these leagues can be found in Canada, Sweden, Austria, Finland, Denmark, France, Australia, and Japan. There's also a few leagues that encompass Europe as a whole. So it's safe to say that if you want to watch football, there's plenty of places to go and watch it worldwide. Thank you for joining us for another video from the Rogers Historical Museum.
Be sure to stop by and explore our temporary exhibit featuring one of Rogers' prolific high school football coaches, Gary Blackie Bond.
We'll see you next time.